So hello everyone. Thank you, Alan. Hello everyone, and a very good day to you all. And thank you so much for joining us. And I'm Aarti Kamraj, product marketing lead at Zuko PageSense, and I'll be the host for today. I'm also very super thrilled to have Alun Lucas with me here. He's CEO of Zuko Analytics, and he's a guest speaker for today's webinar on web form optimization. And he'll also be sharing some real life examples on how you can minimize conversion loss and create better forms. And before we start the session, I just want to share some things that you should keep in mind. So please use the question box to post your queries. In case we will also share a recording of this webinar within 1 or 2 working days. And if you need any assistance with the product or any product onboarding help, you can always reach out to support@zukopagesense.com or support@zuko.io. So respectively. And yes, we'll be running some polls throughout the session. So before I hand over the session to Alan here, I'll just give a brief of what Zuko PageSense is for those who are new here. So Zuko PageSense is an experimentation platform that offers CRO tools. So you can analyze user behavior using heat maps, session recordings, conversion funnels, and much more. And you can use these insights to help identify areas of a website that need focus, that need more improvement. And thereby, you can later on make informed decisions to improve user experience and boost conversions. And we also offer A/B testing as SPTUL testing tools to help you compare different versions of a web page, and thereby you can just choose the one that drives more conversions. And we also offer personalization tool that allows you to create tailored experiences for your users. And plus, we have a complete engagement module that includes polls, push notifications, and pop-ups that helps you to increase your website engagement game. So who can use Zuko PageSense? So from an e-commerce perspective, if you're an online seller, to use CRO would mean, focusing on add to cart button clicks, or, making purchases, or boosting traffic to specific category pages. And when you look at a B2B perspective, it involves capturing leads through, sign up or contact forms, or, your focus would be on, customer retention strategies, or, engaging with visitors on your website, talking to them. And of course, marketers are focused always on the ROI of campaigns, discovering new channels for lead generation, and, maximizing the effectiveness of whatever marketing efforts we are going through. And for designers, CRO helps in uncovering bugs, defining website navigation patterns, tweaking layout patterns, and finding out the misleading elements and eliminating them. So this is why you need Zuko PageSense. So we offer tools and insights that you require to optimize your website and achieve your conversion goals. Now I'm just going to hand over the session over to you, Alan. A minute. Yeah.
Okay.
You are the presenter now. Yes.
So you can see it now?
Yes, yes.
Great. Okay. So I'm here to talk about forms today. As Aarti said, I'm chief of Zuko. And what is Zuko? Zuko is basically a form analytics tool. And what it does, it's installed on web forms, and it tells you when, where, and why people are abandoning forms. Because we know people drop off, so you want to know why. It gives you the metrics that you need to do this, and also ties in with session replay now that allows you to see people struggling with your forms and dropping off. So essentially, it helps you fix the issues that are on your forms and get you more customers. Now, we've been doing this for 10 years. We see, hundreds of forms every month, so we kind of know what's going on with them. So hopefully we can give you some idea of how you can improve your forms today, and that's what I'm going to talk about. But specifically, what we're going to talk about, has my slide changed? Sorry, just Aarti.
Yes, changed.
That's great. What we're going to talk about is, firstly, why is it important? Why is web form optimization important? Then why do people drop off? Why is conversion lost? Why are you losing conversion? Then we'll move on to more principles of designing a form. And then we'll have a little quiz towards the end, which form, see if you've learned anything from what I've been talking about. to see which form you think would perform better, and then finally tying up with some best practice advice. So without further ado, I will start. So why is form optimization important? Obviously, when people look at conversions and UX, they often look at the website as a whole. And that's the nice, sexy pages, home pages, product pages, etc. But actually, most conversion journeys finish in a form or a checkout. So really, that's the sharp end of the process. We know from our data, and there's other studies that have done it, that around 2/3 of visitors to forms don't complete them. So that's a lot of people not completing a form, and so therefore not converting in your funnel. So therefore, if you can improve that, then there's a massive uplift you can potentially have in your conversion rates and your customers and your revenue and all the things you need to be doing. So that's why forms are crucial. They're not super sexy, but they are very important. So why do people drop off forms? So we've looked at this, and broadly speaking, there are 6 main reasons why people drop off. So I'll give you the high level overviews. I won't go into too much detail, but the first main reason is the user's just not serious or motivated enough to complete the form, and they probably would never complete the form that day. Now, they could be tire kickers, people who are just doing research. They might be researching, seeing what your prices are, seeing what they can do, or maybe they've just arrived there and they're just not intending to convert. So you're probably not going to get them today, although you might get them in the future. The second main reason people don't convert and complete the form is they're unwilling to give you the data you are asking for. So this could be because you're asking for data that is personal. And if you're asking for financial information, they may not want to give it you, and that's the reason for them saying, no, I'm not giving you this information, I'm leaving the form. And so that's what, a very big reason is your questions, the questions you're asking them. The third reason is you're asking for information they cannot provide. And we see this, for example, if you're in a form, you've spent 5 minutes completing a form, and at the end it says, oh, please give me your passport number. And people are like, I do not have my passport, I'm out and on my mobile, I can't give you this information. So obviously people are then, well, I drop out of the form, they leave, and you don't get them, you've lost them. The fourth reason isn't super common, but we do see it, is if the form itself is broken or has significant UX issues. So things like the submit button doesn't submit the form, they can't see certain answers, it's just a mess. So obviously it should be pretty obvious if you've got a broken form, you just need to try your form and see if there's some issues with it, but that is a definite reason. Fifth reason is a field or the form in general is too intimidating or complex, or for what they're expecting. If people are expecting just to give you a few details, they will, if extreme example, but if you have a contact form or a lead gen form, and all they expect to give you is their email address and name, and then suddenly you're asking 20 questions, they're like, too much, essentially too intimidating, too difficult, I'm not going to fill this form out, and they leave. So that's an extreme example, but you do see it where you have a big intimidating form. And then the last reason we see commonly is something is driving users away to external sites. And the most common example of this is in checkouts, the coupon code field. I imagine many of you here have done that. You fill out your checkout, you're ready to buy, and there's a coupon code field, and said, oh, I must have a coupon code. So what they do, and we see this in our data all the time, they then go, oh, I'm going to try and find a coupon code. So they go to other websites, try and find coupon codes, can't find it, drop out, or they get lost and never come back. So there may be something on your form that's driving people to look somewhere else, maybe to a competitor, and then not coming back. So those are broad reasons why people drop off. And any of these, obviously, if you have any questions, drop them in, or you feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. I'm free to have a conversation about any of these fields as well. And we've got lots of blog posts I can share on those, but those are the broad areas. So how do we get around that? How do we design effective web forms? Now, there's lots of advice we can give, so I'm not going to give everything today. But what I'm going to do is start with the basics, then look at some specific things to do with forms that you can look at. So first up, the basics. The basics you always need to be thinking of when you're designing and publishing a form on your website. First one is minimizing the information you're asking for. some of the issues I talked about before were specifically because you are asking for too much information that the user doesn't want to give. So you should always do an audit at the start of it. What information do we need? What is a nice to have? So typically you generally only need basic information. Maybe if you're in financial services, you have regulatory needs to ask for more. So you need to have an audit for that, but always be clear why you need it, because often what we'll see is maybe your marketing department says, oh, well, can we ask them 10 questions? I want to know their hobbies or whatever, because we can then market to them. Well, fine, that's what you want, but the user does not really want to give you this information. So if we are designing a form to convert, we should not ask this information now. We should try and ask it later. So basically, every time you add a question to your form, there's more chance for the user to drop out. Even if it's just a small proportion, it adds up. If you're asking 10 extra questions and 1% drop out on each of them, that's 10%. You don't want that. Next thing is think about the right format for each question. And by format, I mean the very specific mechanism where you get the answer. And I give examples. So text box, drop down, radio buttons, check boxes, those sort of things. So use the right format. If you're, some examples here, if you're asking for a short piece of information, like name, have a small text box. If you're asking for, 100 words, make sure it's a big text box so it tallies with what people are expecting. Think about whether you need to use a drop down or not. If you only got a yes or no question, do you want to have a drop down with yes or no? Well, you could, but it'd be more effective to have a radio button. So click yes, click no. Much better, much easier, particularly on mobile. We try and avoid drop downs where possible. So always think, what is the right format that you need to be asking these questions? And then for the form as a whole, look at the structure. How do you want to structure it? Should it be a single step, single page form, or should it be multi-step? Now, what we see typically, is not all the time, is that if you've got a form that's probably more than about 5 fields long, you're better off breaking that into multiple stages. And you'll see a number of studies around that it's been more effective to break it up. It's not always the case, so you've got to be a little careful, and you probably want to A/B test it. But actually, if you've got a lot of questions, you want to break it up and put it into chunks. So personal information, financial information, delivery information, whatever it may be, break it up and always think about what the right structure is there. So those are some of the basics. Looking at specifics. So firstly, something to be aware of is the layout of the form, and specifically, are you going to have a single column layout or a grid layout? So on the image here, on the right hand side, you've got a grid layout versus a single one. Now, in pretty much all cases, you should be having a single column layout for a couple of reasons. One, it renders certainly a lot better on the mobile format, but also the way people look, it's top to bottom. You see the eyes, any eye tracking studies, they go down. If they're going down, up, they're not sure. And the study by the CXL Institute showed that single column layouts were completed about 15 seconds faster than the grid layouts. So therefore, that's obviously a lot of saving of time for the form visitor, and means that they're more likely to complete the form than if they're having to spend 15 seconds trying to jump around. So have a form as a single column layout. The next thing, and probably one of my biggest pieces of advice, is around the validation we're looking at. Now, what I'm talking about today is inline validation. And what I mean by inline live validation is where you give people, you validate someone's answer once they've made the answer. So once they've completed a field and moved on, you give them, if there's an error message, you tell them straight away. You don't wait until they've answered 20 questions on the submit button and then say, oh, you've made 5 errors. And they've go, oh. You tell them straight away. In the example we're showing you here, it says, okay, actually, you need to change your email address and give them specific, tell them specifically what they need to do. And it's not just me saying this. There's sort of a famous study done a few years ago by Luke Wroblewski, and what it showed was, in his study, there was a 22% increase in conversion when they adopted inline validation, because what you're doing is you're telling people straight away. And so you're basically, they know immediately, they make the change immediately. There's no shocks. They're not told at the end of the form. So if there's one piece of advice in your forms that I could give you, use validation like this. The next thing we're going to talk about is HTML types. And now this isn't often something you get involved in as a designer. Often you get the developers to build the form, but it is very important. And what I mean by HTML type is you need to set the field itself to have the right HTML type so it shows the most appropriate keyboard for mobile users. So I think we've probably all been on a keyboard that asks you for your mobile number, and you click on it and then it opens up something like here on the right hand side. You know, you've got a load of letters. Well, I need to give them a number. So actually you then have to find out, oh, how do I get back to the numbers keyboard, do that, key it in and everything. You need to be smooth. You know, if it's an email address, you need to make sure it's HTML type equals email, so you'll get the @ sign. If it's number, you need to make sure it's number. If it's text, you need to make sure it's text, because obviously often we design these things on a desktop, but we don't think about mobile users. So actually, when you're doing it, make sure you got the HTML type right, so the correct and most appropriate keyboard shows up for the mobile user. Next point touches back on error messages again. So be helpful is basically the broad thing here. So if you look at the error message on the left, it tells you there's an error, but it doesn't tell you what it is. It doesn't tell you what you want to do to fix it. Whereas some of those on the right are clearer. They say, okay, there's an error message. What should you do to fix this? So do you use an @ symbol? Do you include a domain name? Do you use the standard format? So always try, if you're going to trigger an error, tell the user what the problem is and how they need to fix it. Be helpful, and then they'll be much more likely to complete the error, fix the error, move on. Whereas if you just have a red box or a cross, no context at all, they're much more likely to get confused and leave. Then sort of final point here I want to talk about is accessibility. Again, you know, many of us are lucky not to have accessibility issues, but there's a lot of people out there on the web who have accessibility issues, whether that's vision impairment, being able to use certain devices or whatever it may be. So I would make sure you do a review. There's a number of tools out there that help you review your forms for accessibility. And I would propose, I won't go into, you know, what you should and shouldn't do today, but make sure you are reviewing it for accessibility, if that makes sense. So that was fairly brisk walkthrough of some of the key points. So what I'd like to do now is kind of give you a quiz, and I think we're going to put up some surveys here or answers. So two of them for you. First one is which form performs better. A bit of context here. So this is actually a form that we used many years ago, Form A versus Form B. So what I want you to do is have a look at these and tell me which of these forms had the better conversion rate, A or B. Okay.
So most people voted A.
Okay.
And almost 5 have voted for B.
Okay. Let's just see if we do have it in the Q&A. I don't think anyone said why they voted. Okay. So the answer is actually, drumroll, it is B. And the biggest, obviously there's a few differences here, but the main difference by far is the confirm password field. So if you look on A, you're asking someone to confirm their password. If you look on B, you don't have that. And B had a 56% better conversion rate than A, and primarily due to the confirm password. And we see this pretty consistently when you're asking people to confirm passwords. It's another reason for people to drop out. Password in general, out of all the common form fields, is the biggest driver of abandonment. People mess it up, they don't like it, they leave. But if you're adding extra things in, like confirm password, particularly if you don't let them copy and paste, you'll see, again, another layer of dropout. And it's pretty consistent across everything. I mean, with this, you always need to ask yourself, do I need to confirm a password? Why am I asking confirm password? Because usually you've got their email address already. If they have an issue, they can reset the password. So actually, it's much easier to do that than asking them to confirm the password. I know you don't want them to get it wrong, but people tend to forget their password anyway. So therefore, you're just asking them to do something. So it's not worth it. And we're, you know, look at pretty much any study and you'll see adding confirm password reduces conversion rate and removing it improves conversion rate. So answer B. Second one for you, and this one we have borrowed from Guess the Test, which is a website with a number of A/B tests. This one's for forms. So we have here a single step or multi-step. So if you look at on the left-hand side, variation A, a two-step registration form. Watch, basic details into company information. Variation B, one-step registration form. Asking basically the same thing, but on the single page. So there's about 8 fields there. So again, the question, if we can get the poll live.
Yes, it's live, and 70% of them have voted for single, whereas 36% of them have voted for multi-step.
Okay.
People are still voting. So most
Okay.
of them are like they consider single form as the winner here.
Yeah. So most is single step. So the answer in this case is A, multi-step. So again, what I was talking about before, often what you're doing is you're trying to create a form which doesn't overwhelm people, where you've got small manageable pieces. And so in this case, the multi-step form performed 30% better than the single step form. And again, you can see probably why. First thing, you're asking some simple questions, name, first name, etc., before you're going into a bit more detail. What's your annual revenue? Much more difficult question. So what you'll often see, again, when we're designing forms, we often have a principle: easy before difficult. So you ask the easier questions, get people started on the form, so they've sunk some time into it before they answer the more difficult questions. So if I was looking at this form, I'd see annual revenue as a question on it. Now that often is a difficult question because sometimes I don't want to give it to you, like we talked about before, and sometimes I don't know. I'm in a company, what's my company's annual revenue? If I'm just a marketing manager, I might not know the answer to that. If I just see that on a single page form, I'll see I've got to answer that. I better go and answer it. I'll walk away. I don't know. But if I've already done first step, first name, last name, title, phone, email, you've done all that, then you come to it. You're like, okay, well, maybe I'll have a look at it. Okay, it's a drop down, and then maybe I'll see. Okay, the drop down's not that intimidating because it's $1 to $10 million, 10 million to 100 million. I can probably think, okay, it's not that important, and I can pick one that I think is correct. So you'll see a higher rate of return there. So again, that reinforces what I talked about before about multi-step forms. So those are our 2 quizzes for today. Final piece is around best practice. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take you through best practice about everything because I've been through a lot of it, but also we've written a book on it, a free book that we're offering on Zuko's website. Basically, it's a big guide to form optimization and analytics. It talks about some of the things I talked about today, but much more. It talks about, okay, how do you create a great user experience on a form? And how do you improve your conversion rate, and how do you use data to help you do that, as well as design principles. So you can see the link on here. I'm sure we'll be sharing it as well.
I've shared it in the Q&A section. So it's a downloadable guide, right, Alan?
It's the downloadable guide. Yeah, so it's a free. We don't need to give any information. It's just a free guide for you to download and use yourself, or however you want to share with anyone that you want to there. So we just created that because we obviously think it's really important that we get forms right, because that's what we do. And so we're sharing expertise that we've built up over 10 years.
So I have posted the link in the Q&A section, so to make it more easier for you all to access.
Great. So I think we've talked about forms now. So really it's all about, okay, are there any questions that you have about forms? Is there anything you would like to ask in particular about forms at all? So yeah, drop them in the Q&A, and then I'll be happy to answer them.
Maybe we'll just give like a few more minutes. And actually, Alan, I want to tell you something. The guess the test one, right? So when I was reading about it, I was super surprised. Generally, I just go log in on the website and just try test figuring out which one is the winner and see why, what happened. And I think even you were the winner, right, for the experimentation and lead convert. That, I mean, the guest the test award also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so guess the test. Yes, it's a good website if you want to go and just test your instincts. But of course, the whole point of testing is your instincts aren't necessarily right. Otherwise, you'd be getting everything right. You need to test it. So that's why I was almost worried that I got them right on this guess the test competition. But I've done other ones that I get wrong. You just never quite sure. Yeah. Okay. Can we get a session on how to optimize conversion tracking? We've got a question in. I'm sure could arrange. It depends. I mean, depends what you mean by conversion tracking. I guess Zuko does that for a form specifically. I guess Zoho has a broader conversion tracking piece if you're looking across the A/B test platform. That's fair to say, isn't it?
Yes, we do. So we are, if you need a more detailed demo on like Zuko or like PageSense, you can just write to us and we'll handhold you throughout the process. I'll just share the email IDs of the specific products, so you can just write to us in case you want to get in touch with us. There's one more.
One more question. Yeah, as a designer, we need to know about conversion of web form optimization. So if we're looking at web form optimization, obviously we've talked about some of that today. So hopefully that's been useful. If you download the book, you can see some design principles there. We also have other ebooks on using data to optimize. Also on financial forms. If you work in financial services, we've got specific advice on there. We've also got a form optimization checklist. This is all at our website. So you can do a checklist and say, okay, this is my form. I go through the checklist and say, okay, should I be, what should I be doing? Am I doing this? Am I doing that, etc. So I'd advise you have a look on our website, download all the ebooks that we've got there. Of course, if you want to look at the data, then you can use Zuko to look at the data and see exactly what's happening on your forms. Okay, so any more questions? I guess not.
Okay. Maybe 2 more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one for you.
No, one for me, sorry. Okay, so more's coming in, yeah. What do you prefer when it comes to lead forms? Can we give a book now option or lead them to the website? This depends, I suppose. I mean, generally, yeah, book now. I think that's what, if you've led someone to a lead form already and they want, depending if it's a book, a call or a demo or something, yeah, you're probably are better giving them book now option rather than if you lead them to the website, they can get lost and might go away. If you prime them to come to the site, to the lead form, I would definitely get them to close them with a call to action, whether that's a book now or whatever, or submit their details, get them now rather than lead them to the website, because ideally they would have been to the website already and then they've come to the lead form. I think there's one for you afterwards.
Yes. So can PageSense be used to show different versions of forms? So we don't have form building tools. We have form analytics tool. So you can track your existing forms on your website. I think when it comes to form building, Zuko has an option, right, Alan?
Yeah, we have a form builder. So you can use that to build different versions of forms. And if you are using an A/B test tool like PageSense, you can then, assuming if they're on different pages, you can show them separately and run a test on them.
So, so if you have an existing form on a website, then probably you can use PageSense to see how they perform and stuff like that. Or if you are talking about like specific polls or like pop-ups, then yes, we do have different versions of them, or different versions of engagement tools or templates for you to showcase.
We've got thank you. It was a brainstorming session. That's there.
Yes. It was definitely, I mean, I want to thank you for all the valuable takeaways that you shared with us that we can apply. And also thank you so much for your time and effort that you put in, like to share your knowledge with us today.
No problem.
Thank
And
you.
if you want, sorry, just if you want to talk, take things offline, ask me a question, just link in with me, say hello, and you can ask me any question if you want then.
Or you can also write us to the email that I have posted in the Q&A section there.
Mm-hmm.
You can just write to us in case you have any issues or you need any help with the product. Thank you. Thank you so much.